Thank you for welcoming me here in Boston. I'm very excited to be part of this family. Not all who wonder are lost, and I think I had a nice meandering pathway getting to this point in time and where I am right now. So yeah, a little bit about myself. So Eric did a good introduction. So I'm Dutch, Danish, American. I was born on an Air Force base, Hill Air Force Base in the United States. My dad was a pilot in the Air Force, so I grew up with jet engines, and I think that triggered my mind. Do you want me to go over there? What's up? The mic?
Right between the two blue lines on the desk there.
Oh, like here? Thank you. No worries, thank you. So yeah, I grew up with jet engines, and I think that was really kind of kickstarting my inspiration, and I saw a shuttle growing up, and I wanted to become an astronaut, but I had no clue of how to get there. And my mom always told me, go do medical school. And I was like, no, I need to be a pilot to become an astronaut or do something with space. And I tried that, and I failed, ended up going to med school. And then at the end of med school, I had a couple of electives, and I was like, oh, maybe I can get this space thing back into my life again. And I did a wonderful internship at TNO, which is an institute that works closely with the Air Force, and they were doing research on vestibular adaptation to G transitions. Now, fast forward 25 years later or so, and I'm back working with them on lunar landing and preparing crew to train for landing on the moon properly without crashing because of visual or any other disturbances that they may occur. So yes, so let's see, how can we start? So my angle for this symposium is really the international one. So I want to kind of give you an honest story, and that's why I'm not talking on behalf of any of the institutions or companies that I work for. I'm really talking really out of my own personal experience working for industry, but also agencies in international settings. Briefly, so I also want to highlight there is no any pathway of aerospace medicine or space medicine in Europe. So we do have flight surgeons working for ESA. So a lot of people ask me, so how do you become a flight surgeon for ESA? And there is no good answer. Every one of us, we have 8 now, had a different pathway in. But I can say that having a background in emergency medicine and wilderness medicine was a great setup. As you can see here, so a lot of the stuff that we do with the crew involves training, so training them for medical emergencies on the space station. So here you see Matthias Maurer working on a fake arm, as you can see, hopefully, because it's pretty much detached from the rest of the fake body, but also stuff like survival training. So we go with the crew to Star City, Russia, typically in the winter time to do survival training. And here you see a mock-up Soyuz capsule. The crew has to get out, and they have to get all the survival equipment out, and they have to camp out for like 3 nights. So we're there with them. We're not doing the camp out stuff with them, but we're there to monitor their health and make sure they don't get frostbite or things like that. And of course, we support them when they do underwater training, and that's where a lot of the hyperbaric medicine becomes another good thing to have in your backpack when you're doing space medicine. And there's, of course, centrifuge training. So actually, I was able to bring back centrifuge training for astronauts to Europe because of my connections with the Air Force. We used to do it in Wright-Patterson or in Star City, but now we're also doing that in Europe again. And here you see some pictures of launches. So we support them either out of Kennedy Space Center or out of Baikonur. And it's very different and also very similar. So it's really actually very interesting to see the similarities and the differences when you work in this international setting. And of course, once the crew goes to space, we switch to telemedicine. We can't go with them, unfortunately, so we have this telemedicine connection every week or as needed. And again, here is this connection with, wilderness medicine. And we do a lot of ultrasound, and that's where emergency medicine is also quite advanced in, and now wilderness medicine as well. So a lot of similarities there. And of course, we also support the crew when they do their EVAs, or extravehicular activities. And we typically do that from the mission control centers. Here you see a picture of the MCCH in Houston. And of course, we're there when the crew come back and land. We're right there, pull them out of the capsule. We're basically the first people they see when they come back to Earth. And we start a process of rehabilitation and then reset the clock again for the next mission. So that was kind of, in a nutshell, what I do for ESA. And as Danica told us, we need to tell better stories. So I was like, okay, I actually rewrote my whole presentation last night because I was like, oh my God, everybody in the room already told everything I wanted to tell. So now I kind of have to reinvent the thing I want to tell. So I'm going to talk about two things I love. Westerns, so I put my right shoes on, and Christmas trees. And I know that I have somebody else here with a Danish background, and we love our Christmas trees. I know that everybody probably loves Christmas trees, but we have a typical, very special affection for Christmas trees. So I'm going to get to that. So bear with me. So I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of international cooperation, and really from my personal experience with it. So let's start with the good, because the doctors always like to start with the good stuff and then come with the bad stuff at the end, right? So here's our lighting international star in the sky. But she's more than a microgravity lab, right? She's really the living, breathing proof that we can do peaceful collaboration in space, and we're still doing it today. And I think we can be very proud of that accomplishment. But there was a very long pathway to it, and we still have to work very hard to maintain it as it is. Here you see a very nice picture of a mixed crew, typical for the ISS. So we have Russians, Americans, Europeans, Canadians, Japanese, all mixed together, all working together. And why does it work so well? And I've tried to kind of distill this down to the essentials. It really comes down to two things, I think. Interdependency, and sharing a similar goal or the same goal. If you have those two ingredients, it's gonna work well. So keep that in your back pocket. So while working on one of my first missions in space, actually this thing happened, and I can talk about it because it was published. One of the astronauts got a thrombus, or blood clot, in one of the neck vessels. And that's not a nice place to have a blood clot because it can move to the heart, to the lungs, or to the brain. So it was an accidental finding. It was actually a study run by a Canadian Space Agency. They were doing a vascular ultrasound, like total body ultrasound, and they found this, and they contacted the flight surgeon, and they said, whoa, we just had this find, and we wanted to let you know that your crew has a blood clot. So you can imagine that was a scary moment for all of us, but I think we pulled through because we were able to work this together. And it was a new thing. We'd never dealt with that before, and luckily we did have medication on the ISS to deal with it, but not for the duration of the whole mission. So we did do close monitoring, and in the end we were able to bring the crew back, but not without any risk or any unknowns. We still had to take some hard decisions, and we were able to get the crew back down safely. But again, it was really an example of international teamwork that made that happen. And we're going to continue that teamwork. We're flying the Artemis. Artemis 1 was already a joint project. So the Orion capsule is made by NASA in the US, and the thing at the back end is called the European Service Module. So that's really creating the propulsion and electricity for the Orion module. So it's already a joint op. And I love this, I don't know if you can see it, but it's an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you need to go together. And that counts for deep space very much. And I think that was also what the team alluded to in the morning yesterday. Everybody's like, we can't do it alone. It's just too big of a challenge, and it's very expensive to do it and to do it right. We have to do it together. So we are going to do it together. And this is a schematic of the Gateway Station, and you can see all the different international partners playing their parts. Canada is, again, donating an arm. And so is JAXA. JAXA is actually creating the rover together with Toyota. And of course, we have the commercial partners also supporting us with these new endeavors. However, I must give a small personal message here. You would say that, okay, you're all in this mission together. It must be that you are all training together. Well, not exactly. So if you don't have a crew member flying on the next vehicle, you're not really invited to the show. So ESA, for example, does not have a crew member on Artemis 2. So a lot of focus is on training the NASA crew and also their surgeons, and CSA, because they have a Canadian crew member. And we, of course, had to talk to a lot of people to say, okay, but actually we think that we need to be involved with the training already now, because this is the time when we can still make our inputs. We may have a different angle on things that you may not be aware of, and if we get down the road a bit further, maybe Artemis 3 or 4, and we do have crew on board, we can't make any notable changes anymore, because it's just not in the phase where we have discussions anymore. So again, I had to really work on my personal network to be able to be allowed to join one of the essential trainings for crew recovery after landing. And it's a very expensive exercise. So this is happening in the Pacific off the coast of Florida. It's an operation together with the US Navy to recover the Orion vehicle, but also practice to get the crew back onto the Navy vessel. And we do all kinds of medical scenarios on the ship to really check the capabilities and the flow, how we're gonna deal with different situations. So in the end, I was able to go, and I want to give you a small peek of what that looked like. But here you see the crew. It was not the crew that's flying on Artemis 2. It was different crew members, and it was a mix of European and NASA astronauts in the capsule. And here they bring back the Orion mock-up. And the crew are then hoisted out of the Orion capsule and brought back to the ship, and then they go directly to the medical bay, and there we would treat them according to their scenarios. We would practice different scenarios with them. So in short, good is not easy. Keeping up foreign relations is continuous work. You have to invest, and you have to nurture it to keep it going. And sometimes you have to take alternative routes. You have to also understand the local culture. Working with Japanese can be very different than working with Americans and Russians. And if you don't understand the local dialect of culture, you can easily make a wrong remark or something that can really alter the course of your planned actions. And personal connections do matter. I do think that is really important. And we talked a lot about trust yesterday, and I can only say that that is really the key to everything when we're working with our crew, but also when we're working with international partners. Here are some examples from European institutions. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want you to be aware that there are lovely institutions across the pond that are really willing and open to work with all of you and collaborate, and they have some excellent stuff over there. Now we move to the bad. And you already alluded to this, so I can be quick, but there is no international pathway to become a space medicine physician because every agency kind of has their own criteria and placements are limited and exchanges are also limited because it's not just a space medicine thing, it's really like practicing medicine in one country is very hard to go to another country and practice medicine. You kind of have to go through all the certification and all the boards again, so that makes it very hard. And then we have the biomedical data silos, right? We don't have access to all the biomedical data like you mentioned. It's all behind firewalls. In Europe, we have the GDPR that's making it very hard for us to share medical data from astronauts. We have a few open repositories, but nothing really global. There's a lot of duplication of experiments, and that actually wastes precious resources. In the end, it actually slows down everything, and it frustrates a lot of people, and yeah, it's all kind of a negative spiral. Can it get any worse? Oh, yeah, it can. So yeah, now we move to the ugly bit. Yes, ITAR and IR. I've had to deal with that battle quite a bit. And it actually prevented me, for example, to access the contents of the medical kit on the Crew Dragon. So I was supporting the first European crew member who was to fly on the commercial crew program, so the Crew Dragon 2, and I was not allowed access to what was on the medical kit. I said, that's not acceptable. How can that be IR or ITAR? Because that's, I'm trying to figure out how to deliver the best care for my patient. These rules were not designed for security. These were designed for security and trade and not really for advancing human research or health. And then I'll stop, and then we're almost there, but national funding silos also create invisible borders. And people who are in the research field know this. It's hard for American researchers to tap into ESA money and vice versa. And then the last is the very ugly, and this is what we're living today, right? Geopolitical tensions, budget cuts, not allowing to travel to conferences like this. This is really affecting personal relationships. And when we go back to the beginning of the talk, it's the personal relationships and the trust relationships that we build at these kind of meetings that are actually meaningful and help us to build new pathways. So yeah, and then of course, we see a lot of representation from the US and a little bit of Europe, but I'm not seeing a lot of those other people here yet. So that's something we need to work on. Quick example, February 24th, 2022. This is when Ukraine was surprised by the Russian invasion. I had a crew member training underwater in Star City. Basically, at that point, behind enemy lines. I was on my way to fly there to support her, and the flight got turned midway, and I had to land in Copenhagen instead of Moscow, and the crew had no clue what was going on. So I was the one that actually had to text her, like, we may need to get you out because all the European flights are canceled, and we got her back. But of course, this was very upsetting to her because this was her training for her Russian EVA. She was going to be the first female European to do an EVA. That was a big thing, and also a Russian one. So she was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to get the EVA. But it was actually through the personal contacts with the flight surgeons and the training team that we were able to train her last session on board the ISS, and she was able to do the EVA in the end. So, just saying. Consequences of all this: delays, increased costs, fractured trust, lost opportunity. It's all very sad. But is there a way forward? I do think there is, but we're going to have to roll up our sleeves to get there. We have to keep nourishing the good stuff. Acknowledge that space medicine is international medicine. We need to have interdependency and shared goals, and need to be open to international pathways because it already starts in the early stages of training. Have international repositories and work closely with ethical and legal. We need to become their friends. They're not so ugly as they may seem at first. If you invite them in, they can actually help you. So I see the role for MGB, MIT to have a critical role here, and I think it's been acknowledged today, to really bring together agencies, academia, private partners, and really foster that collaboration. So, what about the Christmas tree? Well, the Christmas tree is a symbol of light in dark times. I don't like to talk about politics. I like to talk about Christmas trees. And I've seen some very strange things going on globally with Christmas trees. There are things going on that I don't like. They're putting very strange things in the top. And I don't like these things in the top. They're really drawing a lot of attention. And even, very scary or dark attention. Maybe even too much attention for the whole Christmas tree to actually be able to thrive during Christmas. But there is hope, because the top is only a very small part of the Christmas tree. Remember that. So if you decorate your Christmas tree, start from the bottom and you go up. That's how you decorate your Christmas tree. And if you put some good ornaments in there, I'm pretty sure you'll do a great job and having a great Christmas this year. Okay, so I'll leave you with my favorite quote from my favorite mentor, and thank you very much.